So I finished playing Starfield. I put 45 hours into it and I completed the main story as well as did some side quests, did a pretty good amount of combat, experienced the ship combat, ship building, all of the different things in the game. Enough so that I believe I have a impression and opinion on what I actually feel about the game. Now, I know there's going to be a couple people that would say 45 hours into the game, this is when the game just opens up and there's going to be so much more to do, etc. However, it is a story-based game that has a main story as well as a lot to do in the game, and I do believe 45 hours in a single-player game is enough for most of the people that will be picking up the game to know how they feel about the game. I don't think there will be too many people that choose to buy a single-player game like this, play it for 45 hours, and then have no idea how they feel about the game at all. So I do think it's fair to give an impression after 45 hours into a single-player story-based game in which I have experienced the story. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into what I liked about it first. Then we're going to talk about what I did not like about it. And then we're going to kind of wrap it up with who I believe this game is actually for review at the end. Obviously, this is going to contain heavy spoilers. So if you do not want the entire story spoiled for you, then I would recommend not watching this video, as this will include talking about main story and the ending of the actual game. Let's talk about the good first, things that I heavily enjoyed in the game. The first thing that comes to mind is lockpicking, or digipicking as they call it in this game. It is one of the most unique mechanics I have seen in a lockpicking style interactive mini game. You actually have these lines that have to slot in, and if you put the wrong ones in, then the lockpicks won't fit anymore. Then you have to go down a layer, and if you use the previous incorrect ones, then the next layer where you needed those lines aren't going to fit. You have to kind of see it for yourself to know exactly how cool it is, and it takes a little bit of time lockpicking for it to click, but once you actually get how it works and how the color coding of if it's blue, that means that the lockpick actually works in that one, but it could work in multiple ones that all line up blue. It allows you to be able to kind of very quickly blow through it. So your actual skill in learning the mini game matters as much as the skill in the game to actually be able to do the lockpicks. So I actually think that was a very good way of introducing that mechanics. I do like the lockpicking a lot. Like, you actually have to think. Did I fuck up? Oh, wait. There it is. Woo! Speaking of good mechanics, persuasion in the game is a very good mechanic. I actually quite like the way they did persuasion. I have a persuasion build, so most of the dialogue main story options, or in some of the side options, had some part in it that would allow me to persuade people one way or another, which would influence overall how the game will play out. There were times I avoided combat. Thank God.
Get out of here.
Woo! We have no ammo.
You're dead.
Including the actual very ending of the game, the final boss fight, I did not have to do because I convinced the final boss that he didn't need to fight me. Just through persuasion, and I skipped literally straight to the end of the game. Now, maybe it would have been more fun to have the boss ending fight, but the fact that I could literally persuade my way directly into just ending the game and going on to New Game Plus, I thought was pretty cool. Actually, considering I put all my points into a persuasion build, it felt good to have that opportunity. Have to land it. Oh! The persuasion build comes through. So, persuasion and lockpicking are the two things in my head that I liked the most when it comes to mechanics. I also think character customization was quite good. That seems to be, in my opinion, a low bar, however, as I do think character customization in a game that is about single player immersion, going through a story, your character you're going to see in third person mode, etc. You should have a good character customizer, but that does not take away from the fact that they do have a good character customizer, so they get points, in my opinion, for that. Speaking of customization, ship customization is actually quite good. The level to which you can modify your ships is very detailed and actually does matter in terms of performance. So not only can you make it look like a Millennium Falcon or something if you want to, you can make it look like an X-Wing or Star Destroyer or whatever, what have you, but it actually will influence performance and layout of the ship as well, which I think is a very phenomenal way of doing ship design. These are the immediate things that come to my head when talking about really well done parts of the game. There are some beautiful parts of the game visually, but not enough so that I'm going to put it into like the good part of the game, for instance. And there is some good side quests, I think, are another good part of the game, in which there are stories. For instance, one comes to mind about Bill in the methane plant, which effectively you just take a tour around a methane plant and he explains a good old-fashioned boring methane plant. But the cool part about it is the voice acting and the comedic timing of the person actually delivering those lines for the methane plant is very, very solid. Like, it's funny. I thought it was actually a funny moment. It could be a little bit boring, but then when you realize that's kind of the point of it, it's a boring methane plant, and the comedy behind it, of him just explaining the methane plant, is actually quite enjoyable. Bill's never made a mistake, and he knows it. He also knows how to dress. Look at that jacket. Other than side quests, there are other parts of the game that I enjoy as well. Thematically, there are some cool areas in the game. For instance, Neon City is one of the cooler areas in the game. I wish it was a little bit more of an adult theme in some of the areas. For instance, like the nightclub, it did feel a little bit like PG-13, you know? They didn't really double down on making an adult-style game, but I can live without that stuff. And it was pretty cool thematically. Let's rave, boys. Woo, party! Whoa, everyone, it's time to take this party up a notch! Let's go! Woo! Woo! Wait, why are you shooting people, Sam? Sam, chill out! I will say, my favorite part of the game, other than all the ones I mentioned prior, was space combat. Space combat felt pretty good. I actually liked the targeting system. It's almost like a VAT system, basically. But for space combat, it allows you to take down their shields, and you can take down their engines, and then you can board the ship, kill everyone in the ship, and actually take their ship over. That is how I got my ship, which I actually like that a lot. I think the boarding system and being able to upgrade your ship is very interesting. There's also a moment in it when I was playing through and I discovered this really big ship that I raided, but then I couldn't fly it because I didn't have enough piloting skills. So there is some moments in there where your decisions and what you actually spec into matter, whether or not you can even take over some ships, etc. So I was disappointed when I realized I don't have the piloting skills required to take the ship, and I probably should have put some points into my piloting skills. So your choices do kind of influence gameplay in that way as well. So those would all be the things that immediately come to my mind that I really liked about the game. Those were my major things where I was like, oh, I ran into these. I really like these things. Now we're going to talk about the things I did not like that were not ruining the game outright for me, but making me think, okay, this game's going to lose a couple points for me in my review. First and foremost, I'm going to talk about bugs. For some reason, when I mention bugs, there's a slew of people that will come out of the ground to tell me that there are no bugs in this game. It is the most polished Bethesda game of all time. I want to tell you this. If you have to tell me it's the most polished Bethesda game as your line for saying there are no bugs, that is not a good sales pitch. There are a lot of bugs in this game. I would go probably not even an hour before I run into a bug. There would be people just teleporting through walls. There would be companions hitting other people through walls. There was me getting shot and killed through walls. Okay, I'm talking cutscenes. In cutscenes, you would have people literally just walking off for no reason through a wall. We'd have people vibrating like crazy and giving you motion blur headaches. Okay, there was a slew of bugs in the game. So I do not understand when people say there are no bugs and this is a 100% polished game. It is not, or at least not in my experience. Maybe you happen to go through a playthrough and got no bugs. That's fine, but there are bugs in this game, and I experience them all of the time during my 45 hours through the game. Does that ruin the game for me? Again, no. It is part of the Bethesda charm, as we put in one of the thumbnails of my video. I do actually find the bugs to be quite enjoyable content, as I am a live streamer, so they are entertaining. I only ever really laughed at the bugs. There weren't really any point in the game except one time when I quick saved and it didn't count the quick save for some reason, so it just couldn't load that save and loaded the last one. I couldn't find the save literally anywhere, but we went back and saw that I did in fact quick save. Yo, legendary? Wait, hold on, hold up. Save. Oh no, did I not save out? Hold on. I thought I quick saved. Didn't we quick save after killing that guy though? Wait, hold on. Bro, I totally saved after getting... Don't tell me I didn't save after getting... Did you guys see me? I hit F5. The game doesn't agree. And the thing is, the loot is RNG, so that we lost that legendary. Bugs aren't going to be a reason not to play the game, to be honest. That is perfectly fine to experience the bugs. I'm sure modders or a patch will come out that will fix a lot of these bugs, and none of them were core gameplay elements that automatically ruined the game for me. So let's talk about the next part that does actually impact the game that is not a bug, and that would be the AI, particularly while in combat. Now, I don't necessarily play these types of games for the combat. However, it is an integral part of the game, so unless you're persuading your way out of combat continually, you will be running into combat over and over and over again. It is a core principle of the game. So this doesn't include space combat. I've already mentioned I think space combat's quite good. There is some difficulty issues, in my opinion, in which the most hard difficulty is you basically get one shot on your ship, and then the lower difficulty is just you can tank literally everything. So there's some balancing that could be had for space combat, but I still think space combat's quite good, okay? For me, the AI issues arrive when we're on the ground. Now, there's two issues I have with the combat AI as well as the variety. Variety is fairly lackluster. When you're going through the main story, you're basically only fighting humans and the occasional robot, occasional turret. There isn't actually much else, and I understand the whole point is humanity is alone, so there isn't exactly like aliens or anything to fight, but it did feel like I was fighting the same person in the same red suit cloned about 5,000 times throughout the galaxy. They were just called spacers, and I would fight a spacer, and then I would go fight a spacer, and then go fight a spacer, and then go fight a spacer, and occasionally they would have the name pirate instead. But basically, it was all humans inside of a spacesuit, more or less the entirety of the time. That would be fine enough if the variety was lackluster, but the AI itself is quite bad for everything that isn't a turret where all they have to do is aim and shoot at you. I played on the hardest difficulty and I didn't even really realize it because all I had to do was stand behind a person in order to kill them.
They aren't paying me enough for this. Shit.
Like, the AI, it's the hardest difficulty. Like, how are you gonna give me that as a combat? Like, you see what I mean about the AI, though, guys? Like, this is, like, part of the main story. It's a challenge right now, supposedly, and it's like, you know, I mean, like, what the AI when you're in the city is quite bad as well. The guards, if you're shooting around the guards, they don't care remotely. No one cares. You can do whatever you want in the city, and no one's going to react to you about it unless you actually hit somebody. So that part feels like a factual downgrade from like playing Skyrim or something. Like if I use my powers in Skyrim or something like that, people are going to be like, stop that. Like you're disturbing people. But in Starfield, you can kind of do anything you want in the city. Your AI companion is bad as well. Half the time your companion's in there just tanking literally everything and killing stuff. And the other half of it, he's just ignoring the combat or so far behind you, he's not in the combat. And it was very frustrating because combat is pushed so often into the main story. Like you have to actually do the main story if you want to get into New Game Plus. Okay, let's just try to exploit the bad AI. Let's see how bad it is. You're going to experience the combat and you will experience moments, unless for some reason you're just lying to yourself. I don't understand why people are pushing back on this point, but the AI in the game is very bad in combat. Enough so that it is noticeable and it ruins a lot of the fights because you're like, wow, this guy is just really stupid that I'm fighting. And I don't want to say it's immersion breaking because to be honest, the game doesn't really immerse you at all. There's too many loading screens, and I'm not necessarily 100% mulling over the fact that I can't take off and land my own ship. That would have been cool, but I understand the technical limitations to the mapping system, and actually being able to teleport instead of having to spend a week to travel across the world is actually quite nice when you're doing missions over and over and over again. You have all these story plot lines to follow, and you have to go somewhere and do something, and then do like a fetch quest and go back. Actually having the loading screens can be kind of nice in terms of just quality of life. All power to the warp drive.
This is your captain speaking. We are preparing to jump.
We're doing it.
Please put your tables into upright seating. Never mind, we are here already.
Exit ship. I'm just exiting. Wait, how do I... So is there not like... So I don't walk seamlessly in and out? Okay, so they instance it, but you kind of do. Okay, so it's like a middle ground. All right, so they had to do a middle ground. That makes sense, because they got to make the planet, like, loadable. All right.
To learn about Titan's great natural resources.
God. You know, ships taking off really are the coolest part of space games. I really wish they had it in this game. So when you're already not very immersed, and then you run into some combat AI, which is just basically terrible. I mean, it's some of the worst AI I've seen in almost any game when it comes to combat. And I'm really not trying to shit on the game. You have to understand, I have $400 into this game, and I actually thought I was going to cover this game on my channel more than just like a review. I actually thought I was going to be doing guides, tips, like some gameplay highlights. I'm actually moving on with the game because there's enough issues in the game where it's becoming unenjoyable for me. So I don't want to come up here and give a bad review. I was hoping that it would actually be something else for me, both enjoyment wise as well as professionally. But the reality is there's too many issues in its current state for me to continue to play the game and actually enjoy it. I also want to talk about the main story. Okay, so the combat AI I could go on and complain about for a while, but the main story actually isn't that great either. Spoiler alert, the main story is literally multiverse.
The infinite only exists. Judging it makes no difference.
So at the very end of the game, you go into something called the Unity, which puts you into like another universe, and you start over again from the beginning of time, basically. Only this time you're in a parallel universe, and you're like, no, it's me. Like, you don't understand. I'm the guy that died in this universe. You basically are the Black Widow of that game. If I had $1 every time that the cop-out answer for the main story was, it's a multiverse, then I would be a very rich man. And to be honest, I'm kind of over the plot line of the story, where I groaned a lot when we realized that it was a multiverse type of story. The end of the game is a word salad in which it's everything means something, but nothing means something. Bro, these are just a bunch of words. None of this actually means literally anything. So we learn nothing. Something happens. Maybe, guys, did something happen? Maybe it did. Maybe it didn't.
Stepping towards infinity, I offer you a
maybe it's everything. Maybe it's nothing. You decide. Like, that's basically the equivalent of what they say at the end. Now, I'm sure there's going to be people in the comments saying, well, that's because you're too stupid to understand what the story is. I'm sorry. And some of these games I've played, they actually write their own story that is good, in which I can play the game and have a cohesive story. I would have much preferred if my whole story was just, I'm a miner with a debt to pay off, a family to take care of, and a wife to feed, and a house to build. You know what I mean? That would have been a better story, because at least it's real, instead of this fairy dust of everything means everything, and you can go to another universe. Now, I understand that this is somewhat the same story of No Man's Sky. Like, I play a lot of No Man's Sky, and basically it was a race to the center of the universe into which you go into another universe. The thing about No Man's Sky, it is not a linear story game. It is a sandbox survival game in which having a story that allows you to just continue the sandbox survival aspect is totally fine, because the purpose of the game is not the story. It's everything you're building around the story. Now, you may argue that is the case with Starfield, but I actually don't believe it is. I think people that play Starfield probably want to experience the main story. I think some of the people will play Starfield and want to play it and only do the side quests and build the ships and all that. However, it is a game with a main story in which the game resets after you complete the main story. And the main story itself, in my opinion, is not very good. I don't think the writing is particularly good in the main story. I think the voice actors nailed it. I think the voice actors were carrying an otherwise badly written story. That is my opinion. It doesn't mean that you can't have enjoyed the story, and I'm sure there's lots of people that like the multiverse story. I, in 2023, am sick of seeing parallel universes as the explanation for everything. I was rather hoping that at the end of the story, the two people that were the main, basically, villains, or the good guy and the villain, however you want to see it, the antagonists of the story would be somebody else other than the same literal companions that are following you around the entire story because of multiverse. I find that boring as an answer to an antagonist. That is, again, just my opinion. Now, there's the good and there is the bad that I've explained in this game. So where does that actually leave me in terms of my opinion? I think 7 out of 10, the IGN review, is fair. That's kind of what I felt my first go through. After experiencing the New Game Plus and experiencing what some of that has to offer, I upgraded to a 7.5, because I actually think the persuasion, the digi-picking, the shipbuilding, the side quests, the dialogue, the voice acting, that tends to be the better part of the story. I'm not necessarily mad at the major lack of exploration talking points we see. That actually isn't an issue for me as much. I understand this game is designed more so for people that enjoy games like Fallout 4, people that enjoyed games like Skyrim, because those are previous titles within this, lineage here. I understand that that is the type of game it is supposed to be. This game is not Star Citizen. This game is not No Man's Sky. It is not a survival game. It is not Elite Dangerous. It is not EVE Online. So if you go into the game expecting, I liked Star Citizen, I liked Elite Dangerous, I liked No Man's Sky, you will not like the game, because it is not one of those games. It is not a survival game. It has survival elements and it has crafting elements and pretty good customization elements, but it is not a sandbox survival game. It is a story-based game, and if you enjoyed Fallout 4, if you enjoyed Skyrim, you probably will enjoy this game. If you do not like Fallout 4, if you do not like Skyrim, but you like space games, and you think, I'm going to play the hyped space game, you will not like this game. Because once again, this is a Fallout 4 Skyrim type of game. I actually liked Skyrim better because for me, it was less instanced. It felt like an open world. Yes, there was fast travel in the game, but I walked from one part of the map to the other. I enjoyed that more. I actually felt more immersed in Skyrim than I did in this game. However, this game is a space game. I know there's technical limitations onto where we are at the moment, so I am willing to concede that point. So for me, do I recommend the game? I recommend playing it on Game Pass. That's my opinion. I think the game is decent. I think it has some bugs. I think the combat is underwhelming, but the space combat's quite good. I think if you like sitting there and having a beer and listening to the people talk in their side quests, you'll probably like this game. If you liked Fallout 4 and you like role-playing as a character and kind of getting into the universe, you'll probably like this game. If what you want was an unparalleled exploration, you wanted the next No Man's Sky, only this time even better on launch, if you were wanting Star Citizen's replacement or EVE Online, trading economy or anything like that, you will be disappointed. I do think the game is worth playing and worth trying out because there are good things in the game, and I think Game Pass is a good value way to do it. That is my opinion so far. I know I'll get pushback for not giving it a 10 out of 10. Seems like there's a lot of people that think it's a 10 out of 10. I don't think the game's bad. I don't think it's phenomenal. I think it's all right to play. I think it's a decent game, and I think I enjoyed my time while playing it, but I don't think it changed my life or anything like that. That's about as reasonable as I can get on this one. I'll probably play it a little bit more, and then I'll probably move on from the game.